Welcome to this episode of the Customer Centric Retailing Podcast, a forum for retail leaders to discuss industry trends, challenges, and opportunities.
This is Anil.
And this is Fabi, and each episode we invite some of the brightest minds in the industry to discuss the future of customer centricity, with topics ranging from the rise of e-commerce to brick and mortar operations, to omni-channel technology to retail culture, and how all of these elements come together to create customer-centric retailing. Today we have with us Sylvain Nigra, founder and CEO of Retail Performance 360 and former retail director for top luxury brands including Prada, Ralph Lauren, and Michael Kors. Welcome to the podcast again, Sylvain.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on again, and we're excited to explore a brand new topic with you this week, which is going to be all around pre-orders. And Anil and I have been talking to a number of guests over the past couple of episodes about this topic, particularly as it relates to sustainability and forecasting, and we'd love your feedback on it as well. So just to start us off, I just was wondering what your opinion is on pre-orders as a way to primarily gauge interest in products and kind of forecast inventory needs.
Sure. I think pre-order exists for a long time now in some areas, in some industries. Pre-order for sure is a fantastic tool, and more than ever when it comes to customizing and making a difference. I think I've a short list of benefits from the pre-order. I think it encourages the loyal customer to be even more loyal to the brand. That's one number one. For those who are not so close to the brand, it can also attract new customers to the brand because of newness and pre-order, and you're curious as a customer to be part of the club. So that's another point. I think it gets also it helps the brand to get to the maximum on locals, because pre-order is mainly local customers, people leaving around their points of sale, but also with online, I guess it's gonna be more and more also international now, because people get used to pre-order even high price points through the online, not touching the product, but still, I think it's still closer to the brick and mortar world. It creates also an amazing buzz for the brand when it comes to newness that is very expected. Uh, One very recent has been the PlayStation 5. I think it's a number one example to create buzz, excitements around the product. But also, as you mentioned, it's also a way to manage your inventory correctly. And the more the price, the higher the price point, the better it is when you have to produce very expensive items as well. So supply chain wise, it's yeah. I think it's very interesting because it's not just a question of product, it's also a question of communication, marketing communication, how you manage that communication when it comes to a launch of a pre-order for a season for a new product. Um, um, and I think at the end it has to be a product that is very special, um, special in the sense of it cannot be any kind of product to be pre-ordered, as we know. So we need to think of the investment in terms of communication, in terms of product design, and about the launch in different channels. But it cannot be for everything, as we know. So it has to be very specific.
I really like your idea, Sylvain. That it's not something that you would do for every product out there. It is for something really special, something that your customers really care for and they would get excited about. And we've seen, like you said, PlayStation 5. Sony doesn't promote all their products on pre-order. It's just about the PlayStation. Or in case of Apple, we always see that pre-order thing happening for iPhone, right? So, and I know one of our customers, they also do the same thing. Is like their flagship products, they would launch every time the newness or new season products come in. They launch it to their loyal customers, help give them an opportunity to place an order for the products. That gives them, number one, feel like they are privileged. Especially, it's a good one good way of communicating that you care for these customers. So really, it's particularly when it comes to having high quality and special product launch, pre-order becomes a very good tool to get people engaged, get them started early, and also definitely, you sell more at the full price. So definitely good for the business.
Yeah, 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 completely true. I think luxury has that as made to measure, made to order. This is something that is really in every luxury house. That is something that is part of the everyday life. So this type of customer expect that level of service, attention, and product design and newness. I remember working for Prada. We had events around leather or specific capsule that would be really dedicated to high-end customer. I think it's great, it's needed, and even this type of customer, they want to have it, so they want to be part of the game, but they expect to have it. I think it's the magic. And when we talk about not necessarily luxury, but mid-range or whatever mass market brands, there is still room for that excitement for using pre-order, not as something that is has a high price point, but something that a color or customizing. You can think about the initials or the colors or 250 colors that you can pre-order and then make it special, higher than the normal price point of the item. But I think this is something that can be used in any industry when you want to really communicate something on the market. It can be design, color, but also make noise around the brand. I think it's a perfect tool to get to, because most of the time when you do something not pre-order is also when you're not so famous, it can be a way to have a pop-up store in department stores or everywhere to get the customer to know your brand.
Wow, this is amazing. I always thought of pre-orders in terms of inventory. I was always thinking in terms of agility and be able to sell item before even you have it in stock. But you are giving me a totally new perspective on the marketing. For sure, I'm not from marketing, so I don't know. This tells me like why it is so important to talk to you so often. Is like get these new ideas on how pre-orders are actually definitely good for inventory and money, but it's also a really good marketing tool.
Yeah, I think as a consumer, it's hard for me to say that a consumer will decide on a very basic item, something that you will find in the market everywhere afterwards. So that's why I'm saying it has to be something special. If it's not the highest price point, or if it's a capsule or something that you will dedicate to your very loyal customer, then it has, yeah, the meaning, the message from a brand has to be thought, and they need to understand what is their market, why do they want to spend that money. Because I think it's more a way you can do business, you can run business this way, but the majority of the business of a brand will be on other items, on a normal regular business. So yeah, I think it's interesting to understand and to know that it's not just luxury or iPhone or PlayStation 5, but it could be also used by other industries. Another example would be suit supply. I don't know if you know suit supply. Suit supply is making a lot of suits, of course, and their strategy is very interesting because their strategy is not to be in location A, B, C when we talk about brick and mortar world, but it's to be sometimes in an area where you have a lot of offices, but not necessarily retail stores, because they want to be close to their customers. And they have a full range of buttons, colors, and shape of suits, which you can pre-order as well for some of them. And they are doing great because I think it's one, the product is fitting absolutely, the pre-order world, but also it's their way of driving the business as well. I think so that they can, when it comes to, okay, I have a loyal customer, he gets the offer, he's already have 10 of our suits, but he wants something special that day, and I found some, materials in Italy or whatever, and I want to dedicate that, buffer of materials to these type of customers. Then it's, again, it's a way for Suit Supply, who's also a retailer, to recognize, to reward their loyal customers, but also, well, because it's a business. It's nobody knows new Suit Supply until it's word by mouth business as well. Oh, I've got these from Suit Supply in 2 days. Da, 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 da. So I think it's also, again, a way to create the buzz, to keep the ball rolling for them in terms of getting new customers as well.
Yeah, I'm curious what your opinion is, Sylvain, on how retailers can actually do pre-orders right, though, from a marketing and also from a logistical perspective, because it is such a different process from just pushing out a product the way you normally would online and in store. And I was wondering if you have any advice for retailers that want to try it but find it either difficult from a messaging standpoint or logistically challenging as well.
Yeah, I think when it comes to also the operation side of pre-order, is, if this is your question, I think this is very crucial, because it has to be seamless, and of course there's nothing worse than having delays that are not communicated, or something has went wrong in your pre-order and is not exactly what you ordered, and it happens. And it happens sometimes on very high price point items in luxury. And I think this is the other way around effect. Then you get customers pissed off of the situation. So that's why, back to your questions, the systems at in store, when you talk, if the pre-order has been made in store, you need to have the systems to do it. So communication wise, it has to be ideally on the same system. So buying team, sourcing team, supply chains team needs to get the information from one system. I'm talking about IT system, and in store as well, so that everybody has the view where the item is, and follows the step, from talking about, again, back to suits, to measurements, and then making sure that it's the correct size of the customer, because sometimes you need to, because size can evolve as we love to eat or not, or, and customers sometimes 6 months after, because you pre-order 6 months after, then you come back and the size is not the same, you need to adapt. The brand needs to adapt. So that's why, on the way, you will have a full of events that can, that can prevent you to deliver a great service. So that's why I'm talking about system that needs to be right and very efficient, the same one common to everybody from the whole chain, and a lot of communication inside the company. Otherwise, your salespeople in the store will not have will be afraid to do pre-order next time. So you need to give that confidence internally as well, so that they can sell it, saying, yeah, we're managing it, we've done it in the past, it's doing great, and if there is an issue, then we'll fix it.
Yeah, actually, this is really why the real life experience is so important, because we all know happy scenario is good. We all can say, well, place the order and we'll have this item sourced and send it and get it delivered to you in time. It's easier said than done, because in real life almost everything can go wrong. And so it's very important that once you have captured the order, from there on, there's somebody really taking care of each and every order that you captured from your customer. If you are doing small volume, then you can have one or two people, human, responsible for taking care of those products, those orders. But like you said, when we are dealing with a bigger company, bigger ecosystem, and multiple, sourcing agents, and then, all these different departments, there has to be a really mature, really good system in place that not only considers the happy scenario, but there are all these exceptions, including the one which is really interesting one is that, I could have a festival season between the order and getting the item, and I could actually not be the size has changed. So there are a lot of things that can change in the time between when we are placing the order, and this is where ability of your store associates and all the customer service and then sourcing and merchant, the tooling that they have, the processes that they have in place have to really be, flexible, agile, so to adapt to the problems and be able to address all those exception cases that we see in our real life.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a must have for any brand. They need to absolutely make sure that there is a seamless process internally and then in front of the customer. Um, we didn't mention one aspect that is very important, which is the price point. Because when it comes to pre-order prices, because it's not produced massively, then the price might go up too much to a certain point that is whether you are a big fan of the brand and you are willing to spend the money whatever happens, or but the majority is not like this. The majority will say, well, okay, I want to get something special or in advance, earlier than everybody else. How much am willing to pay? So back to my Ralph Lauren days, they had a made to measure, so pre-order service for suits, very expensive. You know, Ralph Lauren has different levels like purple label and so on. And everybody, we had a made to measure, made to order guy for Europe, and he could not understand why we were not able in the stores to develop that service and to get to higher revenues. Um, First, I think the markets, the cities where you are able to deliver that, you need to pay attention that you have your customer there, and not just one, but at least a minimum to be profitable, but also to get the service to a certain level and regime. And then also the price. Then okay, you Ralph Lauren, you are selling crazy. You're a very nice brand, very traditional. People love the brand, but still, if it's not your very core product for Ralph Lauren, they would argue differently, but it's polo. But if you think that you have great product there, you need to understand how much they are willing to pay, and the price what was too high, and also the process was a mess, which at the end, or not a mess, but very difficult to follow, to the point that we had great salespeople in Paris, and they were reluctant to do it because the process was really too complicated. There were so many problems along the way. So so then it's a nice idea that becomes a nightmare. So I think back to our points around the technology, the IT systems in store, and then the follow up in front of the customer is critical.
I love I love the stories that you have, Sylvain, in particular, because your experience has been so great in working with these top, luxury brands and the experiences that they've had. And I think a lot of the time, small retailers will look up at big retailers and say, oh, well, they probably can do everything, right? Because they have the funds and they have the team. And sometimes it's not about that, right? Like if the leadership doesn't have the right understanding of what is actually necessary to execute a seamless plan, doesn't matter how much money you have or how big your team is if you can't roll it out successfully. So I like what you said about it, being a nice idea, but it can turn into a nightmare if it's done poorly. So I'm curious, in your perspective, I would say pre-orders would have to be an organization-wide undertaking in that sense to make sure that it's seamless. So in your opinion, what are the different departments that you think need to come together and collaborate, or who are the major actors that need to come together to make the project a success?
Sure. First of all, it comes to the product. What is the offer, and is there enough? Do we have enough uh, potential customers for it? So, what is the size of the market compared to our brand, and what are we able to produce for sure with that process, sourcing materials and style? So, is there a market for us, and what is the size of the market? If it's big enough and we want to go for it and invest money to create the buzz and go for it, then then of course the guy from sourcing, from styling are the first. Then second people will be of course production and then supply chain. So making sure that it's produced correctly and on time with the right effects. Then I think all the way long also from the minute we communicate to customers, store teams are very important just to make sure that they sell, because the sell, I would say, sell the dream, because if we are talking about pre-order, we are talking about something special anyway. We're not talking about something that is going to be everywhere for everybody, so you don't want to wait or pre-order in advance. So I think sell the dream, meaning the store team needs to be trained, needs to be also, I think, engaged and happy to have something on hand to sell and to tell before selling, telling to the customer. I think this is the key. And for them it's always a great pleasure, because when they have that and it's working, the store teams is really it's for them, and in their everyday life is something's very new, something's exciting. They want to also call their customers. So at the end, store team needs to be engaged and sell the so in this in I would say in the same time, of course, sourcing, production, supply chain, and so on. It's one point, but of course, if you want to make it success as usual, the store team needs to be your ambassadors, and they need to believe in it, and they need also to be reinsured, because most of the time this is not something they are doing every day, and they want to be sure from a system, from a pre-order point of view, that the customer won't be disappointed. It's gonna come exactly the way it looked on paper. So it's a long way, and everybody is important. But I think, yeah, you have two lines in the organization to make it a success.
Sylvain, so there are many brands that are coming from their wholesale business into more of direct to customer business. Many brands, like, especially Nike is leading the path, but there are many other companies that are starting to now talk about going direct to customer. Um, Also, all these brands that have been doing wholesale have experience of selling these items ahead of time, like, before the inventory is available. So that's what they've been doing in wholesale. How does that experience, the experience that these brands have acquired in history, like years of doing wholesale business, how does that experience translate into what the pre-order system would look like when they go into the direct to consumer business?
If you consider, and I have one question for you. Do you consider pre-order, in the case of Nike, for example, do you consider you can customize your pair of shoes through the ID Nike? Is it a pre-order for you?
Uh, it is pre-order, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking still about some nice product that they are launching, but they are going to launch and they're going to sell in volumes. And at the same time, we don't have to wait till the inventory arrives, because like when brands are doing wholesale business, they sell like 3 or 6 months ahead of time before inventory arrives, and this gives the merchant confidence, because now they know that I have already sold 80% of my inventory that I have been manufacturing. But now when they move from wholesale business into their retail business, like when they start doing more and more of direct to consumer, if then the question is that I'm going to launch this brand, this new product. What if I can start selling a month ahead? Even that 1 month of extra time that I get for selling the item is in it's a lot of, has a lot of opportunity, because that means I have less, the tail would be shorter. I will sell out more of my inventory before my end of the season comes up for, all those discounting and markdowns.
Surprisingly, at the moment, the trend is more buy it now, wear it now. Okay, so it's the other way around. What we are experiencing at the moment, we are experiencing newness or product of the season hitting the doors l- later and later. I would say. If I take the example of going to Nike in September and asking for, cold weather or windy weather or rainy jumpsuit to go and for running, and you still have to wait October to get it, I think it goes on the other way around compared to your point. I think they are saying we're gonna produce less, it's gonna hit the door more or less when the consumer will need it, but not in advance, because we don't know the weather. Weather is changing, so for many reasons. I'm not saying they're wrong or right, so sometimes they're right too, but it's not 1 month in advance. And I think in some cases product that that anyway will be top sellers, and then you will sell them. I think yes, they should come back to what used to be the norm for part of the assortment, the launch of a new season, summer, for example, 1 month to get the chance to sell them full price rather than discounting on sale. I think probably I don't know why so many brands are doing that at the moment. It's so frustrating also from a consumer point of view, and it's not the retailers talking now. It's really the consumer, because you don't get the stock, the inventory in store. So it's a lot of frustration. Then you go online. So I would say probably they should start now as the trend is evolving. Yes, I would say in that case, and for that example, I would expect the brand to launch the season on key items. Back to my jumpsuit, rainy jacket, probably in August, because I'm gonna order in August to be ready for September for, to go and run and have my jacket. Because I think the risk there is I will go to any other brand. So I think in that case, the it's pre-order, if you call it a pre-order, they should come back to anticipation in my mind.
I'm curious what your perspective is in general, or if you have any advice for retailers in terms of particular metrics that they can look at or might want to look at, or KPIs or anything like that to actually measure the success of a pre-order initiative. Because when you were talking about the example, I think you said at Ralph Lauren, where it didn't seem like it was a successful initiative, at least in that particular example. How do you know if it's unsuccessful? How do you know if you want to try to do it again and what to change?
I think there are some key KPIs the brand need to look at. First is the percentage of loyal customer using pre-orders compared to total versus total. Also, basically, pre-order revenues on total revenues. That's also something to look at. Um, I think percentage of pre-orders delivered on time is also something that also help, not for the season but for the following ones, to improve the process. Percentage of customer using pre-order for the first time is also great to understand how we are developing the activity for the future. The basic average basket UPT is always a must-have in that industry anyway. And I think I would call it love meter. So is to try to understand from a customer point of view, if you like the experience, the product, the communication throughout the process, but also at the end if you're happy. And I think sometimes we forget that aspect, and to get also some details from the customer to improve the next season is also crucial. So I will go for these ones because they are measuring also, because what you try to get also is excitement around the brand and buzz. Uh, a loyal customer talking to friends. So I think it's important to measure the quality and the experience.
Wow, this is amazing. Actually, what you said, I really like is that as a brand, when we are launching the pre-order strategy, it's important that we keep track of all these customers who are doing it for the first time and also who are repeat customers, so we know if we are successfully doing it. And more so, it's important that we track how did we do it, how was the performance, like how many orders were delivered on promised date, because the brand that can keep its promises only can keep their customers. Otherwise, well, if we can't keep our promises, customers are then don't expect loyalty, right, from customers. So that's the other very important thing, is that the brand should be able to keep track of what was the promise date and if they were able to deliver on it. And then the supply chain, in good communication with the supply chain, I believe there might be few changes in the promise dates, because if the shipment was delayed, like we had the Suez Canal situation or something, ports are busy or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's important that we keep track of what we are promising to our customer, and are we able to deliver it? Because if we are not, then actually our strategy is going to be very counterproductive, and we are going to start losing our customer. Better not do it at all than doing a half baked, and yeah.
And and if you take the example of PlayStation 5, um, I wonder to which point this strategy is. Of course, it's a big success, definitely. But as you have another competitor, which is Xbox, I'm not a gamer, so I'm talking from outside the world. I don't know if pre-order is great, but as you mentioned, to a certain extent in terms of time, because I'm wondering how many sales do they miss because it's not on the market, and then you have to wait, and then I'm losing the momentum, and then I'm gonna buy for probably another one, the Xbox. So I think there is it's not easy, but there is creating the excitement, then creating a statement, establishing a new product. Well, this one is not new, but still making it a great success because it's the main part of their revenues anyway in the companies. And then okay, then becoming a mass market product, and then there is product everywhere in the world for the PlayStation. So I think they're lucky because the market is. You have two competitors. They can do it. In other industries, it's impossible to do that. You would lose your mind doing that.
Yeah, in fact, like I said, it's like one, it's for a very elite, very special product. Pre-order definitely makes sense, but then there is a high volume product like PlayStation or iPhone or products like this, where people really want to get their hands on the item as soon as possible. So in both cases, it makes perfect sense to go for pre-orders, because when you are dealing with a high volume, getting these pre-orders help in organizing the logistics and making sure that we route the enough quantity to the enough geographical region, so we can fulfill our orders effectively and efficiently. So it makes sense for both side of it. Like it definitely helps in creating marketing excitement in the customer. At the same time, it is also a very helpful tool for supply chain, because with the good insight into what I'm going to be working with, like how many orders I'm going to handle, the volume. It's much easier for us to organize our team, our activities, get all the logistics help we need to get the items shipped to the customer in time.
Definitely, it's a great example. I'm not sure it's happening this way at the moment with the PlayStation 5, but it's absolutely how it should be driven, and completely in line with you in terms of inventory management and revenues.
Yeah, and also with this particularly now with this whole COVID situation, we cannot, do so. It's not perfect idea to go stand in line and get crowded around the region, right? So it's important that you can schedule the pickup times and all that, right? So it's in this case also pre-order makes sense because you can place the order for the item on your phone, and then when the item arrives you are notified. So there's, if the brand can do perfect communication, good communication with their customer, they can notify them about when the availability is. So when the customer comes to the store for pickup or item gets delivered to their home, everything is much better organized, and the experience level is can be much higher, much better, and for today's world, safe.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It comes in my mind when you were talking about that. I think I was ordering something for my son last time, and it's I can't remember the word in English when you jump. They have how do you say that? Outside you. Sorry, I forgot the name. Um, and I had to buy one part of it to make it safer because it was destroyed. And the company who's producing that, it's the main activity. They just do these items, and they have on pre-order. And the high season, I can imagine the high season starts now because it's something you do outside. All they have probably 30 references, big, small, like 90% of their catalog is on pre-order. Then it's another good example, I think. That is for sure they have some things bad happening in terms of having everything's produced from a part of the world, I don't know, but this is a disaster because of course I bought on Amazon what I needed and I received it 3 days later. So again, I wanted to buy the product from the company I bought the whole system. And then today, if I want to buy a new one, I will have to wait September. So, so this is the bad example of pre-order because it's pre-order late. So it's the worst of the idea.
Yeah, in fact, this is like instead of, like we were talking about the KPIs, so instead of leveraging the data that you have, they are in fact using it as an excuse for not having today. In fact, if I'm having pre-order, then it's automatic that I'm not able to fulfill the demand. So this should be an informed decision for the supply chain, so they can go and order more, get them more manufactured, get it item in stock so that we can deliver to our customer. And yeah, so this is like, this is where it comes, like if the different departments in the company can come together, use the information that we are collecting, all the data that we are collecting, and use that data for making the informed decision and planning, better planning, then I think it can become a good business.
Yeah, no, definitely, and we mentioned how do we plan, how do we measure? Of course, we know it's not rocket science. It's not always easy to measure, but to a certain extent on some key items, you're gonna sell them and full price. Then you have to go for it, and you need to also take some risks and having more stock and the pre-order helps you to manage that all along the way. I think this is a great tool that should be used more and more in the future, definitely.
It's been great to get your perspective, Sylvain, particularly from a customer experience standpoint, from a marketing standpoint. I think a lot of the times when people talk about pre-orders, they talk about it primarily from a sustainability lens or from a profitability for the retailers lens, which both of those are very valid. But to your point, if the customer experience sucks or if customers don't enjoy or don't get their items on time, then they really should probably not do it at all. So, I think we can leave it there for this episode, but we want to thank you so much for joining the podcast again. And it won't be the last episode we do together. So our audience can look forward to seeing or rather hearing from you again on the podcast soon to discuss a new topic. But for now, thanks to our audience for listening, and thanks, Sylvain, for joining us.
Thank you guys. It's been a pleasure.
That's it for this episode of the Customer Centric Retailing Podcast, featuring our special guest, Sylvain Nigra. Sylvain provides a great perspective on the branding, promotional, and customer experience aspects of the pre-order initiatives that many retailers are testing today. He's worked with some of the best retailers in the world, and even they have done it wrong. It's all in the execution, otherwise it's just a nice idea. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Please rate and review and recommend to a friend or fellow retail fanatic. This podcast is brought to you by Hot Wax Commerce.